I just want to do a quick recap of what we talked about last week, just to get us back to where we were. And then I want to continue where we left off. So at the end of our last conversation, we were talking about how, or at least according to Grok, the sovereign child philosophy is fundamentally incompatible with the Hare Krishna parenting style. And we started going over some of the
we were kind of agreeing because the basis on which Grok was taking itself was kind of incorrect. So if you take it from on that basis, then it kind of makes sense that both are incompatible.
I'm not sure. Well, let's explore that. I'm not sure if I agree with what you're saying, but let's explore it. Let's see if we can see where we go. So I've identified 5 areas where I feel like there's conflict between the Hare Krishna parenting philosophy and the sovereign child. We already talked about 3 of them last week. So one was that how knowledge grows. Hare Krishna religion is top down. Sovereign child is bottom up. Go see last episode if you care to know more details about that. Second difference is that in the Hare Krishna religion, there is such a thing as an infallible source. Sovereign child philosophy, everyone is fallible. So, that causes all kinds of differences. And then the third thing that we discussed that I don't know if we fully came to a conclusion on, but we talked about was the difference in understanding of what it means to be a sovereign individual. So the Hare Krishna idea of being a sovereign individual is you can only be sovereign when you are operating on the level of love. Whereas in the sovereign child philosophy, people are always sovereign, even for material choices. So the Hare Krishnas say, no, you're not sovereign when it comes in the material world. You're controlled by the material nature. You don't actually make choices.
That's something.
But yeah, I want to have a separate discussion on that. Maybe we could, if we want to talk about future episodes, free will, I've got lots to talk about.
No, not just free will. Even with the sovereign child, it's with the understanding that there are certain, for lack of better term, maybe boundaries that you're not crossing. And as long as you're within those boundaries, then you're sovereign. So as long as you're following certain boundaries, you're within certain boundaries.
You're talking from the Hare Krishna perspective.
No, from just the
sovereign child.
Yeah, from just the secular sovereign child perspective. Okay. Also, as long as the child or even the adult, you're secure within certain boundaries. It could be a moral or any, depending on where you kind of draw it. Just as a family, there are certain moral boundaries that each of us decide, and as long as you're following within them, then there is sovereignty for you. But if you're crossing that, then I don't know what the sovereign child, the idea of the sovereign child says to that. Let's say a small child, crosses certain boundary that the family follows.
Like running into the street, like a little toddler running into the street, into traffic. Sovereign child would say, there's a boundary here for your safety. I'm going to take you out of imminent physical danger. From the sovereign child perspective, I think that's the only exception. Whenever there's imminent physical danger,
not just that could be one of the boundaries, but other boundaries also.
There's not very many other boundaries when it comes to the sovereign child philosophy.
Yeah, so there are certain boundaries. So it's not like there are no boundaries.
Yeah, protective boundaries, like physical safety boundaries, yes. But outside of that, I haven't seen much, at least from Aaron Stupple. There's a lot more boundaries in the Hare Krishna religion, which I hope to get to in today's conversation. Okay, so the fourth difference that came up in my conversation with Grok was about the goal of parenting. So everything prior to this was all about the moral and philosophical foundation of the different ways of looking at parenting. And now we're going to talk about what is the goal of parenting. The sovereign child understanding of the goal of parenting is very simple and easy. It's just to maximize freedom and to facilitate interests of the kids, whatever those may be. Except in cases of like imminent physical danger, which we were just talking about. So
as a parent, you're providing everything so they can reach their potential. Potential could be just that they'll be home. That could be their potential, but I'm okay. I'm just giving the facilities, and I'm happy that they can express their freedom in reaching their potential. No?
I'm not even sure saying reaching their potential, like that almost sounds like a goal that you're imposing on the kids. You want what's best for your kid. I mean, you want to provide what your understanding of whatever the best is. You want to give your knowledge, you want to give your reasons. But ultimately it's up to them to decide what their life is going to be like. You can help facilitate that. You can help, maybe guide in certain circumstances. You're certainly there to protect, provide resources. You and I, we're friends. I don't have an understanding in our relationship that it's my role for you to reach your full potential. Like, I'm not thinking about you in that way, but it sounds like you have an idea of thinking of your child in terms of, I want my child to reach their full potential.
Yeah, because the relationship is different.
Okay. Aaron Stupple's ideas, I don't know if it's exactly like that because they're a sovereign individual.
Yeah, sovereign.
They're a sovereign individual, meaning like they get to more or less dictate their own life. If they want to live a life with achieving great potential in whatever field they can, we can facilitate that and support it. But if they want to live a life of something that we might not view as, living up to their full potential or whatever that is, that's also fine because they're sovereign. Like, I would never tell you.
Yeah, let's say I want my child to be a soccer player, but they don't end up becoming a soccer player. They end up, let's consider, becoming a carpenter. I might not be happy. I might not be happy from that, oh, this is what I wanted my child to become. But if they are happy being a carpenter, then as a dad, I'm okay with that. I'm happy.
But the real question is, would you be happy with them? You'd want them to reach their full potential as a carpenter. Like, you want them to be a great carpenter.
No, great carpenter is whatever their capacity that allows them to be.
But whatever that full potential is.
They might not become the greatest carpenter that ever was. They might just be a carpenter, one amongst many others. As a parent, I cannot tell if they're reaching their potential or not. I might know what their inclinations are. For both of my sons, I might say that, oh, Mukunda's inclination is this, Murari's inclination is this. But I can't say what is their potential in that inclination is. So I cannot judge saying that if they have reached their maximum potential or not. It is up to them to know if they have reached their maximum potential. As a dad, all I would say is just make sure that whatever you're trying to do it to your best of your potential. If that potential is in the scale of what the society says 0%, let it be. But that judgment has to be from them. The judgment cannot be from me or my wife or nobody.
Yeah, I'd be curious to ask Aaron Stupple Grok what he would think about that.
For me, that's the Hare Krishna understanding also.
My guess is that Aaron Stupple wouldn't like this framing. Like, the goal of parenting is to have your kids reach their highest potential. I don't think he would support that.
Reach their maximum potential as in, as a parent, I want my child to be happy. That's the end goal I'm seeing.
Okay, having your child be happy is different than reaching their highest potential. Earlier you said you were talking about highest potential.
Yeah, I don't see both as being contradicting. I want them to reach their maximum potential because I currently, with my understanding, see that's one way of having a fulfilled life, just materially. I parent in such a way that I give them all facilities whereby I think that they can express themselves and be happy. They can only express themselves in a way that they have inclination towards.
So Aaron Stupple would strongly reject, or at least radically reframe, the idea that parents should deliberately parent in order to push kids toward their highest potential.
Deliberately push. That's not something what we are saying.
So what are you saying? I want to know what you are saying, because earlier it sounded like you were saying that you want to parent in such a way to try to help maximize your kids.
Yeah, but I'm not deliberately kind of pushing them. This is where, when you use the word deliberately pushing, it means that it is something that the child is not gravitated towards, and I am kind of manipulating in such a way that I'm saying that this is your journey and make sure that you bloody hell get to the top of this. I'm deliberately kind of navigating their path and pushing them towards that direction. That's not what I'm saying.
So then what are you saying?
I'm saying understand the child's inclination where they are at and make sure that you provide all the facilities, whatever you can, and you cannot provide facilities which you are not capable of providing it. Whatever you can, and through that make sure that they are also getting this understanding that they cannot just stroll along the ride. There is some level of effort that they should also be putting in reaching their destination, whatever it could be.
So when you say try to maximize potential, what you really mean is that whatever their pursuit is, that they need to put in their best effort towards achieving that goal.
Yes.
I still think Aaron Stupple would reject that. Let me finish that. Let me read a few more sentences, and then we'll see if I can update the prompt here. So highest potential is an adult imposed goal, and imposing goals is coercive. So I think you are kind of imposing a goal when you talk about requiring your kids to put forward a best effort toward achieving their own goals. That's kind of a requirement that you have, that they have to put in their best effort for. They can't just do things for the fun of it. Like they can't try it just because they're interested and they like it just for fun and do it to, let's say I don't want to put 100% effort towards this goal. I only want to put 10% effort toward this goal that I set for myself. And I want to put 20% effort towards this other goal that I set for myself. But that's not their highest.
If they decide that this is my path, if they are in that exploratory phase where I like painting, I like sports, I like something else, and I want to explore all of those, it's not possible for them to put 100% here, 100% here, 100% there. If their entire journey is such that I'm exploring, all and well.
Why even have that idea as a parent then, that they should even have any kind of best effort at all? If you're okay with, let's say their whole life is just exploring and not really putting their best effort towards any particularly one thing.
If somebody is exploring, for me that's putting best effort, because you're trying to understand yourself. What is it that makes me happy, and where am I?
Here, maybe this sentence will help clarify this. So according to Aaron Stupple's ideas, kids are already full people. The goal is liberty and knowledge creation, not optimization. So I feel like whenever you say the words best effort, highest goals, said kids are already full people. The goal is liberty and knowledge creation, not optimization.
So how do you explain knowledge creation?
Well, knowledge creation is what we talked about last time with, conjecture, creativity, criticism, and an open air correcting environment.
There is knowledge grasping. You're not creating knowledge. You're
creating knowledge for yourself. That's how knowledge grows.
Okay, your understanding of the knowledge.
Because you have knowledge. Yeah, knowledge is something that you come to or you realize that has to come from you.
So realization of the knowledge. Okay.
I guess so. But yeah, maybe this might be a linguistic or just semantics, but that's my understanding of this. I'm wondering if there is a disagreement here, or if it's just we're not using the right words to come to.
I slightly see a disagreement of, like, at least this part feels quite contradictory to the understanding of Hare Krishna philosophy.
Yes, and so maybe we can move on to the Hare Krishna understanding philosophy, and then we'll come back to this discussion and see if we can crystallize it a little better. So basically, sovereign child, maximize freedom, facilitate interests, whatever those interests are.
I agree. Like, just that part.
You agree with that statement?
Yeah. The end goal for me in my head aligns with the Hare Krishna philosophy.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to come back to this. So that's how you feel now.
Yeah.
Let's have a discussion, and then I'm going to ask you that question again and see if you still have that same understanding. So this is the goal of the Hare Krishna parenting philosophy.
You said 5. We only discussed 4.
No, right now we're on the 4th difference, and so the 4th difference is the goal in my reading of this. And then there's one more after this. This is just how I'm organizing. You could probably break it up into whatever. So from the Bhagavatam, Rishabhadev's teachings, 5th canto. You're familiar with this?
Yes.
Yeah. So Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 5th chapter, 18. The verse itself states, one who cannot deliver his dependents from the path of repeated birth and death.
It's talking about the parent.
Right.
Yeah.
Should not become a spiritual master, a father, a husband or mother, or worshipable demigod.
Yes.
The purpose of parenting is to raise kids as devotees, to deliver them from the cycle of birth and death.
Liberty.
So I think there's different understandings of that word liberty from the sovereign child perspective and from the Hare Krishna perspective. Yeah. Prabhupada has said in some of his letters and other stuff that the goal is like to make devotees, avoiding cats and dogs by producing devotees. He explicitly rejects forcing, but insists on loving guidance so children never go away from bhakti. The goal of parenting is to protect child's eternal soul through discipline and Krishna consciousness. Another goal of parenting is to train the children in self-control, humility, service, and dependence on Krishna. And Prabhupada is known for saying that child worship is more important than deity worship. Yeah, taking care of children is itself a devotional service. Prabhupada has also quoted Chanakya Pandit, from birth to age 5, parents should be very lenient and affectionate. From ages 5 to 10, gradually increase discipline. Ages 10 to 16, you should be strict as a tiger so that the child fears disobedience. And then after 16, treat as a friend and allow growing independence. Prabhupada talks about Chanakya's parenting advice, and he seems to endorse it.
He endorses a lot of things that Chanakya Pandit.
Yeah. The goal of parenting is not to facilitate worldly interests. The parent's spiritual duty, basically to help the child avoid Maya and progress toward Krishna, overrides the child's immediate sensory desires. And then facilitating interests stop where those interests conflict with the regulative principles or the goal of raising a Krishna conscious child. So Grok brought up all these things with the idea that these things do not line up with the sovereign child philosophy.
If you're trying to compare a process that is oriented towards a goal that is not just considering this single lifetime to a process that is just considering the goal of this single lifetime, then it feels both do not sync up.
Doesn't take any stance on multiple lives.
Yeah. It's not considering the understanding of Hare Krishna philosophy where it says your ultimate position is a servant of Krishna, and this life, just make sure that you achieve that ultimate liberty of being the servant of Krishna. If you just put it as a liberty, yes. But how do you express that liberty is very different in the language of sovereign child versus in the language of Hare Krishna. So it depends on how do you see the expression of that liberty as.
Right. So the Hare Krishnas, they see or liberty / freedom. We could also use the word freedom. They both have the goal to maximize freedom, but they have a different understanding of what the word freedom is. The Hare Krishnas have the understanding that it's more of like a freedom from idea. So freedom from illusion, from the cycle of birth and death, freedom from material conditioning.
Yeah, if you see it from a negative standpoint, but in a positive way, it's
freedom to love.
Freedom of expressing my eternal position as a part and parcel of the divine couple. And in trying to facilitate that, there are certain negation of things that I need to do. But more than the negation of the things, there are a lot more acquisitions that I need to acquire, like the knowledge creation part of it.
According to your view of things, or, well, not your view, let's just say the Hare Krishna view of things, there is a goal. There is a goal for life. It's very clear, especially in the Hare Krishna movement, the goal is prema.
Yeah, prema puhartha mahan. And the ultimate goal, mahan.
Yes, and the purpose of parenting is to help facilitate the kids to make progress towards that goal.
Yeah, parenting as a relationship. In the Hare Krishna philosophy, in any relationship that I am in, I'm trying to assist the other related person in that relationship in trying to maximize their potential of that. As a husband, I'm facilitating my wife. As a brother, I'm facilitating my brother. As a father, I'm facilitating my children. As a friend, I'm facilitating my friend.
I think the main tension here is that not everybody believes the Hare Krishna philosophy and doesn't have that as their goal of life.
Yeah.
And many devotees have kids, and those kids would probably say that, hey, my goal is not prema. My goal is not to be a devotee. And if you're following the Hare Krishna religion, there's a conflict there between, you have this calling or this mandate from Prabhupada and the Vedas or Bhagavatam to facilitate or help your kid get closer to that goal. But the kid is saying, no, that's not my goal. I don't want that.
And as a parent, try to acknowledge that.
You acknowledge it, sure, but it's a conflict. Do you not see it as a conflict?
Yeah, you do see.
So then what is a Hare Krishna parent supposed to do?
Try to encourage them in anything that they have. So that's what I said. You cannot, as a parent, you cannot decide what their destiny is.
So then I'm going to jump back to that original question that I had asked you. So the sovereign child philosophy says to maximize freedom and facilitate interests, whatever those may be. And you said you agreed to that. But as a Hare Krishna dad, if your kid has an interest that is not in alignment with the Hare Krishna goals, you are still going to facilitate that. But that might be ultimately driving them further away from the goal of Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
So in your mind, sovereign child trumps the Hare Krishna goal for parenting. So the goal for parenting from the sovereign child perspective is more important to you, as a higher priority for you.
No, I see Hare Krishna philosophy as, like, Krishna is not saying that you better become a devotee. If not, you're just doomed. I'm waiting. It's your choice. I'm waiting here. The analogy of two birds. Krishna is just waiting there. He's waiting. He's giving you all the facilities, whatever that are required for you, and he's just waiting. Your role is to give them facilities. If they're willing to take it, well and good. If they're not willing to take, you can't control their destiny. So I don't see it as sovereign child is saying something. If I was homeschooled, I wouldn't have been as successful as a student going into school. I needed the school setup. But somebody might not be. Cannot be that homeschooling, no schooling. Like, there are a lot of these concepts, public school. But there are certain children who need the public school setup. There are certain children who will require the homeschooling setup. Similarly, there are certain children for whom possibly that sovereign child setup might not work, where they'll not be able to express their needs and their wishes, their feelings in a similar way if there is no structure. Maybe there are, for Stupple, his children, like the way he presents it works well for them. The idea that sovereign child philosophy works for everybody in the way that he presents it is slightly a problematic idea.
Hey, I guess it depends on what you also mean by work.
Works as in that end goal of the child fully achieving that liberty and freedom, where they are able to kind of grasp the knowledge, get it, everything. Let's consider just with respect to the education. If I was given a chance of a sovereign child as where I would like to read when I want to and not like to read when I didn't want to, it would have been terrible. I needed like a defined structure of my mom sitting there and telling, this is the time to study. Let's do that.
Okay, so this is what makes me think that you don't actually accept this philosophy.
Yeah, like even in the first thing that I said, I'm inspired by it, but I do not fully agree with the sovereign child. That's where we started also. I don't fully agree with, especially the practical implementations of how every parent and every child should kind of align. Like there are a lot of practical day-to-day things that just hearing that podcast has inspired me to do, has enabled me to be a better parent, and like enrich my relationship with my children. But I cannot agree on the practical implementations of how he presents it will work for everyone. Like certain things might work for one of my child, and I see how my child interacts with day-to-day things.
There's also this underlying assumption in what you're saying and how you're talking. You have an idea of what it looks like when something works and what it looks like when something doesn't work. You give the example for yourself, like, I know that me doing my own thing would not have worked.
Yeah, for me.
For you.
Yeah. Taking me as an example, at least with respect to accomplishing the aspect of secular study, I needed a structure.
Okay, but so did that come from you then? That requirement, it came from you. So I think it's, where do these requirements come from?
Yeah.
And ultimately, who's the decider of what works and what doesn't work? Because it sounds like from the way that you're talking, the parent, you are in a position to know, oh, this is working, this is not working. You don't, okay.
No, the child might not express it in the words, but through the interactions, I should be able to understand if it is enriching the child or not.
Regardless of what the child says.
Yeah, and also kind of bring that entire relationship to a certain level of liberty where the child is kind of feeling comfortable saying that, Dad, this is not working for me.
If your child comes to you and says this is not working for you, even though from your perspective it looks like your child is growing nicely.
Yeah, I want him to justify.
You want him to he has to justify.
Explain me. I mean, just justify as in that, like, why is it not working?
Let's say he gives a reason that you don't agree with, but that he still believes that what he's doing is best for himself, and it's at odds with what you think is working for him.
I'll try to accept what he's saying, then can move on to the next thing. But then that will definitely require a discussion in my head.
Discussions are great. There's no issues with having discussions. It's a matter of, when do you exert coercion? When do you make a rule? How do you react when your child disagrees with you and wants to do something that you don't think is good for them? I think that's where the real flashpoints come in. So let's get a big example that I think many devotees would find problematic. Meat eating. If your child came to you one day and said, hey, Dad, I read this article about how meat is so good for you and it's so healthy, and I want to get jacked. I want to become super ripped. And, in order to do that, I hear that you need a lot of protein. The great source of protein is meat. I hear it's good for you. I'm following all these carnivore diet people on TikTok or whatever. I want to start eating meat. How are you going to respond as a Hare Krishna parent to a child coming to you with that interest and that desire? How are you going to facilitate that?
First thing is, I'm not well versed in the intricacies and technicalities of that topic. So I'll try to find somebody who is into that, and then let my child have a discussion with that person. Like the first level of discussion I'll try to have with my level of understanding what I kind of consider, and kind of explain whatever the TikTok videos, articles are presenting is one perspective, and a lot more perspectives.
Sure.
Especially like that discussion might have been much more tough and complicated in like 30, 40 years back. But now there are these world-class athletes who are vegan, like not even vegetarian, who are vegan and still able to kind of perform to the level of like professional athletics by following veganism. So that I don't see that conversation as being very tough. If it is just on the technicalities of I need to muzzle up and those. But then there could be certain other layers also that discussion will require. So
let's say he's done a lot of research and he's very convinced that eating meat is what he wants to do. let's say you do all your research, and let's say you come to a different, obviously you have a different conclusion that you don't think meat is required, and there's probably moral issues with it.
So is it that he has made his decision and then trying?
Yeah, let's say
Because when I do that research, I have my conclusion. So I'm only going to look at the topics that will suit my conclusion. So there is no point in doing research for me.
he's done his research. He knows what he wants. You can put forward your argument.
what
It doesn't
age,
matter
like-
the age. And from the sovereign child perspective, it doesn't matter the age. Let's say he
So expecting a 5-year-old brain to be as developed as an 8-year-old, 18-year-old, I'm not saying that because I'm 35-year-old, I know well. A 5-year-old does not well. Just from the ability of grasping the knowledge is different. You'll not teach a mathematics subject that you'll teach an 18-year-old to a 5-year-old unless that 5-year-old is actually capable of grasping that. There are some geniuses who are able to grasp an 18-year-old mathematics knowledge at 5-year-old. But not everybody is like that.
So it almost sounds like you're saying only when your child is capable of putting forward a cogent argument that you accept will you facilitate desires that you disagree with.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not in line at all with sovereign child philosophy. What you're doing is you're basically saying you are not sovereign. You cannot be sovereign because you can't put forward a cogent
He is not sovereign. He is depending on somebody else's articles, the ideas that they are presenting. So there is sovereignty in there.
sovereignty in the sense that they're a rational individual that's capable of coming to knowledge in the same way that
So somebody is presenting their ideas and coercing them to get convinced that eating meat is good. So there's coercion, either physical coercion or an ideological coercion.
Sure, but your child came to knowledge using the same process that you did as a sovereign individual adult. They'd use the same process to come to whatever their conclusion, whatever to knowledge that they understand, and they want to act according to that knowledge, to whatever level it is.
If they're physically capable to act on it without my dependence, then they're happy to do.
Okay, that's fine. Your house. So what if he says, "Hey, Dad, my friend invited me to a birthday party, and they're serving hamburgers there. Can I eat it?" Or I'm going to eat it. How are you going to respond?
I'd ask why. Why do you want to eat it?
He gives all the best answers. It doesn't even matter why. Let's just say he's
It matters why to me.
Are you going to put obstacles in front of him to do that, or are you going to facilitate that desire?
It depends on the conversation. That's what I'm saying.
What would he need to say to convince you?
I mean, at this point, nothing that he says will convince me because I can't think of an argument that will convince me.
So
I'll be honest.
this is why I don't think you and most people actually follow.
At least how I'm seeing it is what Aaron Stupple is saying as parents coercing the child to certain things. I'm seeing it's either like physical coercion or the child is intellectually being coerced by some external factors. So there is coercion. So saying that there is no coercion in sovereign child, we are letting the child make their own decisions. So how is child gaining that knowledge?
Gaining the knowledge the way everybody gains knowledge, through their own conjecture and creativity.
So even in the case of sovereign child, the parent might or might not accept, but they are limiting the resources the child has access to.
Right. Yeah. So it does make sense that you can't buy your child everything they want because you have limited resources.
You're not giving the capability to the child to gain access, to gain knowledge from every source available. You're limiting their sources because it's even physically impossible for any parent, even if they want to give access to the entire knowledge base that's available across the world.
Getting access to the internet pretty much gets you.
Yeah, but which websites?
Well, according to Aaron Stupple, he doesn't put these restrictions.
No, I'm not saying he's putting. It is the guidance also, right?
Yeah, you can give your guidance. Giving guidance is one thing, but it sounds like you're putting obstacles in front of your kid because you're not even allowed.
I'm not putting an obstacle. I'm saying it needs to be a conversation.
But you just said there's nothing that the child could say that would convince you.
Right now, I can't think of an argument. Like
You can't use that then because you're basically saying there's nothing that my child can say that will allow me to facilitate this desire.
Give me an argument that the child might make, which is...
It doesn't matter what he said because he's a child. He can give you the best argument. Like,
even as a 25-year-old man...
You want me to convince you that we should eat meat? I could try.
Yeah.
This assumes that people don't accept the Hare Krishna philosophy as a goal. Like, there's lots of really good secular arguments out there for why eating meat is okay. One we could even start with a religious argument. Let's say he's read the Bible and he started hearing from Christians, and now he accepts that God created this world and that humans have dominion over all the animals, and that he quotes different verses from the Bible that talk about how...
The only source of Bible that I've heard is from Prabhupāda. Again, when I went back to the other point of, I don't have access to the intricacies and technicalities
Right. So
of
even
the
if
topic.
I explain all these things to you, you're still not going to accept. That's my point. Is that let's say I give you the most cogent, best argument. And I don't have access to this. I don't know all these things.
Yeah, let's bring person who has access to that knowledge and let's debate. It's like bringing a PhD person topic and then trying to have them debate with a 10-year-old.
I don't know, the most philosophically astute meat-eating non-Hare Krishna devotee, you'd be okay with that person coming and having a debate in front of your child with a Hare Krishna devotee, let's say, and they're having a debate about whether eating meat is okay or not.
Yeah.
And then if you had that debate and your child sees it and understands, oh, okay, they make different points, and then your child says, I like the meat-eating guy's point's a lot better. He's got all the arguments and PhDs and whatever. He's got all the criteria that you need for a cogent argument. Are you going to then allow your kid to eat meat?
Hypothetically, yes.
So but that's what it would require. It would require him to go over that obstacle, that hurdle of getting a high-level guy who's very, very high reasoning skills to argue for him.
I'm also bringing somebody who is, if my child is arguing with me, then yeah, if you're bringing certain things which I don't have.
I think it's very unrealistic. I think if a child went to a birthday party and saw hamburgers and wanted to eat it.
If I know that the birthday party will have an hamburger, then I'll definitely put a hurdle to that, talking to the parents that this is what, as a family, that we believe in. And I request you to respect that and not provide hamburger to my child. I'll definitely do that. So when you kind of compare the practical applications or the practicalities of certain process with how they view the end goal as like how sovereign child views the end goal is very different from how Hare Krishna sees the end goal as. When you kind of see the practical implementation or practical aspect of the end goal, then the way you approach that, your practical steps of approaching it is also very different.
Exactly. That's the point.
So then you cannot compare the practical aspects of how sovereign child does and the practical aspects of Hare Krishna, and then they say that they both are contradicting. Because if both of them are the same, achievement of the end goal is the same, and then you're saying that both of them are defining entirely different aspects of how to go there, then you can say that both are contradicting.
Right. What I'm trying to establish is that I don't think that you accept the sovereign child, even philosophically. I think you place the Hare Krishna parenting style as a higher priority for your parenting style. And then wherever there's a conflict, you give preference or whatever to the Hare Krishna parenting style.
As a philosophy, I see both of them are aligned.
No way. This is the example of where they're not aligned. The child has to go through the whole rigmarole just to eat meat, whereas in the typical sovereign child philosophy, any sovereign child, philosophy parent would say, we want to eat meat. Here you go. Here's a burger.
You're comparing the philosophy with the practical aspects.
What good is a philosophy if can't be applied? This is the practical application of the philosophy. The child has a desire to do something. You facilitate that desire. But you put obstacles in front of that desire.
Because the practical aspect of it is conflicting with the core idea of the philosophy with which it
that's
talks.
my point, is that these are, so this is why Grok said they're fundamentally incompatible.
No, because in the sovereign child also, when it comes to the physical harm, everything goes out of the window. When the practical aspect of any activity is contradicting with the core idea, core certain boundaries that the philosophy holds, then there is no sovereignty to the child. Similarly, in Hare Krishna philosophy also, non-violence is a core aspect of the philosophy. When your practical action is contradicting to that core aspect of the philosophy, then you will obviously not give sovereignty to the child.
I think that's different because...
It's not different. There are certain different core aspects. That's how I'm seeing it.
I'm seeing them as mutually exclusive. They are fundamentally incompatible. I agree with Grok. The Hare Krishna parenting philosophy and the sovereign child philosophy are incompatible. You don't agree with maximizing freedom in the secular sense, because maximizing freedom is, I want to eat a burger.
Because the entire philosophy that I am basing my life on is not secular philosophy, so I cannot.
Right. So they have different goals, different understandings. They're fundamentally incompatible. That's my point.
I don't agree.
Okay, we're gonna have to continue this. What I want to do is I want to take this recording, upload the transcript or whatever to Grok, ask Grok about our arguments, steel man both arguments, make it nice so that you're putting forward the best argument on your side, I'm putting forward the best argument on my side, and then we can have another discussion.